Welcome to Relative Our Family Mess. This is a dedicated space where we explore the deeper dimensions of life, focusing on true strength, timeless resilience, and the compelling stories that shape a man's journey. If you appreciate substantive, impactful content and refined perspectives, you are in the right place. Without further ado, I welcome you to today's new video. My name is Frank Holloway, and the phone rang at 11 minutes past 11 on a Tuesday night in November. I remember the time because I had just looked at the wall clock above the kitchen sink, the one Ellie bought at a yard sale in 1994, and I had just told myself it was late enough to go to bed. The shop downstairs was locked. Buddy, my 13-year-old beagle, was already snoring on the braided rug by the wood stove. I had a half cup of coffee left, cold by then, and a slice of pound cake Sam Crawford's wife had dropped off Sunday after church. Then the phone rang. Not the cell. The old kitchen phone. The cream-colored one with the curly cord. The number only family had. I picked it up on the third ring. Dad. One word. And I already knew something was wrong. Tyler hadn't called me Dad in close to 4 years. He called me Frank when he called at all, which was twice in 2023, and once last Christmas. Tonight, his voice cracked on that single syllable like a board splitting along the grain. Tyler, what's the matter? Son, it's Madison. She's in the hospital. There was blood. Dad, there was so much blood. And they said the baby. They said she's losing the baby. And they need to operate right now. And the insurance. Dad, the insurance won't. They need a deposit. They need it tonight. I sat down on the wooden stool by the counter. I sat down slowly, the way a man sits when his knees have forgotten how to bend. I am 68 years old. I have buried a wife. I have buried both my parents. I have buried a brother in Beirut in 1983. I know what bad news sounds like at 11 at night, and this sounded like all of it at once. Where are you, son? Which hospital? Richmond. Street. Catherine's. Dad. They need $28,000 by morning, or they won't take her into surgery. I called the bank. I called my boss. I called everybody. You're the last person, I swear. You're the last person I would call. I did not answer right away. I looked at Buddy by the stove. I looked at the photograph above the phone, the one of Ellie in her blue dress at the lake in 1998, smiling at something I no longer remember. I listened to my son, breathing on the other end of the line. And I tried to feel what a father is supposed to feel when his daughter-in-law is bleeding to death in a hospital in Richmond. What I felt instead was a small, cold thing under my ribs. The kind of cold I used to feel at the paper mill when a man started talking too fast about an accident that had not happened the way he was saying it had. Tyler, slow down. Which doctor? What? Which doctor is operating on Madison? Give me his name. I'll call the hospital. There was a pause. 3 seconds. Maybe 4. In 38 years of carpentry, I have learned that a pause is a kind of joint, and you can tell from the pause whether the joint is tight or whether somebody is hiding a gap with putty. Dad, I don't... They said his name. I can't remember. It's a Russian name. Doctor. Volkov. Volkonsky. Something. Dad, please. The deposit. I need you to wire it. I'll give you the routing number. Please, son, I don't have $28,000. You have the shop. You have the land. You can take a loan against it. Dad, you can call Tom Bradley at the credit union. He'll do it tonight if you ask him. He owes you for the cabinets. I stood up. I did not mean to stand up. My body just stood up. Tyler, where are you right now? Are you at the hospital with her? Another pause. Longer this time. I'm in the parking lot. I came out to call you. They wouldn't let me. The reception was bad inside. Put Madison's mother on the phone. What? Madison's mother. Diane. She'd be there. Put her on. Dad. She's not. She's driving up from Norfolk. She won't be here for 2 hours. Then put a nurse on. Any nurse. Anybody in scrubs walking by. I'll talk to them for 10 seconds. Son. And then I'll call Tom Bradley myself. The line went quiet, not silent. I could hear traffic somewhere. A truck shifting gears. A car horn. I could hear my son breathing the way a man breathes when he is choosing between 2 lies and cannot remember which one he started with. Dad, I'm here, Tyler. Don't do this. Don't do this to me. Don't do this to her. I'm asking you, please, just wire the money. I closed my eyes. I thought of Ellie. I thought of what she used to say when Tyler was small and got caught with his hand in something he shouldn't have. Frank, she'd say. Love him enough to make him tell the truth. Tyler, I love you. I love you more than you understand. And the answer is no. I hung up the phone, but he lifted his head from the rug. I stood in my kitchen at 11:14 on a Tuesday night, and I waited for what I knew was already on its way. I did not sleep that night. A man does not sleep after he tells his only son, no. He sits in a chair, and he stares at a stove, and he waits for the phone to ring again. It did not ring. By 4 a.m, I had walked the kitchen floor enough times to wear a path Ellie would have scolded me for. By 5, I had made fresh coffee. By 6, I had cleaned the percolator twice. At 6:40, I heard the first siren. It came from the south end of Mill Street. Faint at first. The way sound carries through cold air in November. Then a second siren joined it, and a third. And by the time I stepped onto the porch in my flannel shirt and Carhartt jacket, I could see the glow above the rooftops 2 blocks away. Orange. The wrong orange. The kind of orange a man my age has seen too many times in his life and has never gotten used to. Buddy whined at the screen door. Stay, boy. I walked. I did not run. A man of 68 does not run on a frozen sidewalk in work boots. Not even toward his own shop. I walked the way I had walked to the mill every morning for 23 years before they closed the gates in 1988. Head down, hands in pockets. 1 foot, then the other. Holloway and Son Repair sits on the corner of Mill Street and Church, a single-story building with a green tin roof and a hand-painted sign Ellie made me in 1991. The shop in front, the workshop behind. 38 years of cabinets, chairs, rocking horses, kitchen tables, hope chests, and 1 mahogany coffin I built for my own brother in 1983 because the funeral home wanted $400 I didn't have. The workshop behind was on fire. 2 pumper trucks from Millbrook Volunteer Fire, 1 tanker from over in Stannardsville, and Sheriff Boyd's cruiser were already there. Hoses snaked across the parking lot. Steam rose where water hit hot tin. The front shop was still standing, the windows intact, but the back where I kept the lumber, the lathe. The bandsaw Ellie's father gave me in 1979. The back was a black skeleton against an orange sky. Sheriff Boyd saw me first. He is 61, 240 pounds, and he played left tackle for Albemarle High in 1982. He walked over slow, the way a man walks when he has bad news he doesn't want to give. Frank. Boyd. I'm sorry. How? We don't know yet. Marshall's coming up from Charlottesville. But Frank. He stopped. He looked at his boots. It wasn't electrical. I can already tell you that. There's a gas can by the side door. Plastic. 2-gallon. Not yours, I'd bet. I nodded. I did not say anything. There is a kind of silence a man learns to keep when words will not help. A pickup truck pulled up behind the cruiser. A 1998 Chevy with a primer gray hood. The muffler held on with baling wire. Sam Crawford climbed out, 70 years old, a retired deputy who had worked under Boyd's father, and the only man in Greene County who still called me by my middle name. Edward. Sam. He came up beside me and stood the way old men stand when they don't know what else to do. Shoulder to shoulder, facing the same direction. Tyler called you last night. I turned my head a quarter inch. 11:11. Sam nodded once. He did not look surprised. He looked the way a man looks when something he had been suspecting for a long time has finally said its own name out loud. What did he want? Edward. 28,000. Said Madison was bleeding out in Richmond. St. Catherine's. He couldn't remember the doctor's name. You give it to him. No. Sam was quiet a moment. He worked his jaw the way he does when he is choosing his next sentence with the care of a man counting nails. Edward. I was up at Ruby's diner till about 10 last night. Tyler's truck was parked behind the Exxon on Route 20. I didn't think much of it. Thought he was visiting. Now I'm thinking different. I looked at him. The orange light moved across his face. You sure it was his truck? Black F-150 dent in the tailgate where he backed into your mailbox in 2019. I'm sure. Behind us, a section of the workshop roof came down with a sound like a chest of drawers falling off a porch. A fireman shouted. Someone redirected a hose. I felt the cold thing under my ribs again. Bigger now. Heavier. Sam. Yeah, Edward. I need you to do something for me. I don't want to ask the sheriff yet. I don't want this in a report until I understand it. Name it. The trail camera on the back fence, the one I put up last fall for the deer that kept getting in Ellie's garden. It runs on a memory card. Battery good for 3 months. Sam looked at me. Slow. Steady. You want me to pull the card before anybody else thinks to look. I want you to pull the card before anybody else thinks to look. He nodded once. He walked around the side of the shop, past the fireman, the way an old deputy walks when he is still a deputy in his bones. I stood alone in the cold with the orange sky on my face, and I thought about my son. And I waited. By 8 in the morning, the fire was out. By 8:30, the trucks from Stannardsville had rolled back south. The marshal from Charlottesville, a thin man named Pritchard with a clipboard and a head cold, walked the perimeter of what had been my workshop and made small marks on a diagram of a building that no longer existed. I stood by the front shop with a paper cup of coffee somebody from the diner had brought. Ruby herself, 81 years old, in her pink quilted coat, had come down the street pushing a thermos in a grocery cart. She set it on a sawhorse, patted my arm twice, and walked back without saying a word. That is how Millbrook does grief. We do not crowd a man. We bring him coffee. Sam Crawford came back around the corner of the building at 20 minutes to 9. He had his hands in his jacket pockets. He had a look on his face I had seen exactly twice before in 40 years of friendship. Once in 1991 when his wife was diagnosed. Once in 2003 when his grandson did not come home from Iraq. Edward, walk with me. We walked. Past the front shop, past Old Blue parked under the maple, down the alley behind the Methodist church where nobody could see us from Mill Street. Sam pulled a small plastic card out of his shirt pocket. SD card. Black. The size of a postage stamp. I haven't looked at it yet. I wanted you to see it first. You got a reader? In the truck. We sat in the cab of Sam's old Chevy. He pulled a beat-up tablet from under the seat, the kind his grandson had given him 3 Christmases ago, and he had finally learned to charge. He slid the card in. The screen flickered. A list of video files came up, time-stamped, going back to August. I scrolled to last night. November 14th. The files between 10:30 and 11 were what I wanted. 10:47 p.m. A figure walks into frame from the alley side. A black F-150. The dent in the tailgate visible in the floodlight from the church across the street. A man steps out. Tall. Thin. Wearing a hooded sweatshirt and a knit cap pulled low. He carries something in his right hand. A plastic gas can. 2-gallon. Red. The man stops at the side door of the workshop. He looks up. Straight at the camera. He does not see it, because the camera is tucked under the eave behind a knot of grapevine Ellie planted in 2005. But the floodlight catches his face for 1 full second. It is my son. Sam paused the video. He did not say anything. He looked out the windshield at the bare branches of the maple tree. I watched the still frame on the screen. Tyler, 38 years old. The same face I had taught to shave at a bathroom sink in 1999. The same face that had stood beside me at his mother's casket in 2020. The same face. Now, with a gas can in his hand, and a look I did not recognize. Play the rest, Sam. He played the rest. Tyler walked around the side. The camera lost him for 3 minutes. Then he reappeared, empty-handed, walked back to his truck, and drove away. 10:53 p.m. 18 minutes later. At 11:11 p.m., my kitchen phone rang. I sat in Sam's truck for a long time. The cold had crept into the cab. My coffee had gone cold in my hand. Sam did not speak. He understood that some silences a man has to walk through alone, even when somebody is sitting next to him. Sam. Edward. He called me from the parking lot of a hospital in Richmond. He said Madison was bleeding out. He said the baby was dying. Sam turned his head slowly. Edward, Madison ain't pregnant. I looked at him. Diane was up at Ruby's Sunday after church. Madison's mother. You know how she talks. She was complaining Madison and Tyler haven't given her a grandbaby, and Madison just had her. You know, her tubes done in September. Outpatient. Madison told her she was done with the idea. The cold thing under my ribs turned over. It became a different kind of cold. Not fear, not anger yet. Something quieter than both. The cold a man feels when a picture he has been looking at for years suddenly turns into a different picture. And he realizes he has been wrong about the shape of it the whole time. Madison was not in a hospital. There was no baby. There was no surgery. There was no $28,000 owed to any doctor anywhere. There was a man with a gas can at 10:47 and a phone call at 11:11 and a number, $28,000. That somebody had picked the way a man picks a lock. Sam. Yeah, Edward. Who would tell my son to do this? Sam thought a long time. He worked his jaw. He looked at the dashboard, the cracked vinyl, the rosary his wife had hung from the rearview mirror in 1988. and he had never moved. Edward! Tyler ain't smart enough to think this up. Madison ain't mean enough on her own. Whoever told them to do this, he's somebody with money. And he's somebody who wants something off you that's worth a whole lot more than $28,000. I looked at the still frame on the tablet. My son's face. The gas can in his hand. "Sam, drive me home. I need to find Ellie's ledger." He turned the key. Old Chevy coughed twice and caught. The Greene County Sheriff's substation sits in a brick building on Route 33 that used to be a Western Auto in 1972. Sheriff Boyd's office is in the back. The interview room is in the front, with a window that looks out onto a parking lot where 4 cruisers and 1 tow truck sit on a strip of cracked asphalt. Tyler had turned himself in at 10:15 that morning. He had not done it because his conscience told him to. He had done it because Sam Crawford, after dropping me at my front porch, had driven straight to Boyd's office and laid the SD card on his desk. By 10 o'clock, Boyd had a deputy at Tyler's apartment in Richmond. By 10:15, Tyler had walked into the substation with his hands already half raised, a public defender on his phone, and a face the color of old drywall. Boyd called me at 10:40. "Frank, your boy's here. He's asking for you. I'll be there in 20 minutes. I drove Old Blue myself. Sam offered. I said no. There are some roads a father has to drive alone, and the road from Millbrook to the substation on Route 33 is one of them. 6 miles, 2 stoplights, a bridge over the Rivanna. I do not remember any of it. I remember pulling into the lot and seeing Boyd standing on the porch with a cup of coffee and the kind of expression a sheriff wears when he has known a man for 40 years and is about to let him see his son in handcuffs. Frank, he hasn't been booked yet. He's talking. He's talking a lot. I figured you should hear some of it. Has he asked for a lawyer? Public defender's on his way from Stannardsville. 45 minutes out. Tyler's been told he doesn't have to say anything till the lawyer gets here. He keeps talking anyway. Boyd led me down the hallway. He stopped at the interview room door. Frank. One thing. He's scared. I mean, scared the way a man is scared when somebody worse than me is going to be unhappy with him. You watch for that. He opened the door. Tyler sat at a metal table in a gray hooded sweatshirt I recognized from Christmas of 2019. His hands were on the table, not cuffed. A paper cup of water sat in front of him, untouched. His eyes were red. He had not slept either. He looked up when I walked in, and for 1 second, just one, he was 9 years old again, standing in our kitchen with a broken lamp behind him and a lie already on his tongue, waiting to see what kind of father I was going to be. I sat down across from him. Boyd closed the door and left us. Tyler, Dad, look at me, son. He looked at me. He held it for maybe 2 seconds. Then his eyes slid down to the cup of water. I saw the video. Tyler. He flinched. A small flinch. The kind a man cannot hide because it happens before he knows it is happening. Dad, I can explain. No, you cannot explain. You can tell me the truth, or you can lie to me. And either way, I will know which one you picked. Those are your 2 choices. He started to cry. Not loud. A small leak at the corners of the eyes, the way a pipe leaks before it bursts. I did not move. I did not soften my face. I had loved this boy for 38 years. And last night, he had tried to take from me the one thing his mother and I had built with our hands. And I owed him, in this moment, the kind of love that does not flinch. Tyler, Was Madison ever pregnant? He shook his head. Once. Small. Was she ever in a hospital last night? No. Did you light my workshop on fire? Dad. Did you light my workshop on fire? Tyler. Yes. He said it on a breath. Barely a word. But he said it. I sat back in the chair. I did not feel anger. Not yet. Anger is a fire that wants oxygen, and I wasn't ready to give it any. I felt instead a thing I had not felt since the morning Ellie died in the hospital in Charlottesville. The feeling of a door closing on a room I had loved. Tyler, who told you to do it? He shook his head fast. 3 times. Dad, I can't. I can't say. You don't. You don't understand. Was it Madison? It wasn't her idea. Whose idea was it? Dad, please. He said if I said anything, he said he could make it so I'd never see Madison again. He said he could make it so I'd lose everything. Tyler, look at me. He has already made it so you have lost everything. The only question now is whether you tell me his name before the lawyer from Stanardsville walks through that door, or whether you let me find out on my own. And son, I will find out. You know I will find out. He pressed both palms to his eyes. It was Mr. Whitmore, Madison's father. Yes. Harrison. Yes. The cold thing under my ribs went still. A name. I had a name. Tyler. One more question. Why 28,000? Why that number? He took his hands away from his face. His eyes were wet and confused and very young. Dad, I don't know. He picked it. He said you'd know what it meant. Outside the door. Footsteps in the hallway. The public defender from Stanardsville. I stood up. Tyler, I love you. We are not done. I walked out. I drove back to Millbrook the long way. Up Route 33 to the bridge, then down Old Mill Road, past the orchards Ellie's father used to own before the bank took them in 1979. Sometimes a man needs 10 extra minutes between hearing a name and walking back into his own kitchen. Harrison Whitmore, I had met him exactly 4 times in my life. First in 2015 at Tyler's engagement dinner at a steakhouse in Charlottesville, where Harrison had ordered a $60 bottle of wine and made a joke about Millbrook being a town that fell off the map in 1962. Second at the wedding the next summer. Third at Ellie's funeral, where he had stood at the back of the church and shaken my hand without taking his sunglasses off. Fourth at a Christmas dinner in 2021, where he had asked me, between the ham and the pie, whether I had ever thought about selling the shop and the land it sat on. I had said no. He had smiled the way a man smiles at a child who has just refused a piece of candy, as if my no were temporary, as if it were a thing he would come back to later, when the candy was a little shinier. I pulled Old Blue into my driveway at 12:20. There was a black Cadillac Escalade parked in front of the house. A driver in a dark coat stood beside the rear passenger door. He looked at me without expression. Behind the tinted glass, I could see a shape. A man. Waiting. The rear window came down half an inch. Mr. Holloway, would you join me for a moment? I stood in my own driveway, in my own work boots, on the patch of gravel my wife and I had laid down by hand in 1987, and I looked at Harrison Whitmore through the gap in his tinted window. You can step out of the car, Harrison, or you can drive away. Those are the choices on my property. There was a pause. Then the door opened, and Harrison Whitmore stepped out. He was 65 years old, 6'1", in a charcoal wool coat that cost more than my monthly Social Security check. Silver hair, freshly cut. A face that had been arranged for a long time to look kind, without ever quite getting there. "Frank, may I call you Frank? You may not. Mr. Holloway is fine." He let the smile sit on his face, the way a man lets a coin sit on a table he is about to push across. "Mr. Holloway, may we speak inside? It is cold, and what I have to say is, I believe, in your interest. It is cold. We will speak here." He nodded. He did not seem surprised. He glanced at the driver, who took a discreet step back toward the front of the Escalade. Then Harrison reached into his coat and produced a folded sheet of paper. Cream-colored. Heavy stock. "Mr. Holloway, I am aware of the events of last night and this morning. I am profoundly sorry for what my daughter's husband has done. Tyler is, as you know, a young man under a great deal of financial and emotional pressure, and he has made a catastrophic error of judgment. I intend to make it right." "You intend to make it right?" "I do." He held out the paper. "This is an offer to purchase the shop, the workshop, ruin, the 2-acre parcel, and your residence at 418 Mill Street. The offer is $180,000. Cash, closing within 10 business days. As part of the offer, I will personally retain counsel for Tyler and underwrite his legal defense. The arson charge will, I'm confident, be reduced to reckless endangerment. He will not serve time. He will keep his job. My daughter will keep her husband. And you, Mr. Holloway, will walk away from this with a clean check and the satisfaction of knowing you helped your only son survive the worst night of his life." I did not take the paper. I looked at him. The land alone, 2 acres on the corner of Mill and Church, with the new outlet developments coming up the valley from Charlottesville, was worth $350 on a slow day. The front shop, still standing, was insured for $60. The house was paid off in 1998. A man in a charcoal coat had just offered me roughly half of what my life was worth, and called it a kindness. "Harrison." "Yes. Tyler told me you picked the number 28,000. He said you told him I would know what it meant. For 1/2 second, something moved behind his eyes. A small thing. The kind of thing a man who plays cards for a living trains himself never to show, except sometimes, when he is tired, and a question lands he did not expect. I have no idea what your son is referring to. Mr. Holloway. He has been under enormous strain. 28,000. Think on it. You're a man who keeps numbers in his head. You picked that one for a reason." He smiled again. The smile had thinned. "Mr. Holloway, the offer is on the table. It expires Friday at 5 p.m. I would urge you, as a friend of the family, to consider it carefully." He held the paper out one more time. I did not take it. After a moment, he laid it on the hood of Old Blue, turned, and walked back to the Escalade. The driver opened the door. The door closed. The Escalade pulled away. I stood in my driveway with the cream-colored paper sitting on the hood of my truck. Buddy whined from the porch. I picked up the paper. I did not read it. I walked inside, and I went to find Ellie's ledger. Ellie's ledger was in the bottom drawer of the roll-top desk in the front room. under a folded American flag and a stack of birthday cards Tyler had made for her between 1992 and 2004. She had kept the books for the shop for 31 years. Every nail, every 2x4, every customer who paid in cash, and every customer who paid in eggs, jam, or a Saturday afternoon of help cleaning the gutters. After she died in 2020, I had put the ledger in the drawer, and I hadn't opened it since. I am not proud of that. There are some kinds of handwriting a man cannot look at, for a while, without his chest doing things he does not want it to do. I sat down at the kitchen table. I laid the ledger on the oilcloth. I poured a fresh cup of coffee. Buddy came over and put his head on my knee. I opened the cover. The first page was 1991. Her hand, blue ink, neat as a Sunday school teacher's. I turned past it, past 1995, past 2002, past the year Tyler graduated high school, past the year I closed the second crew because the orders thinned out after the recession, past 2018, the year she was diagnosed, her last full year. Her handwriting had started to shake by then, but she had still kept it. Every line, every dollar. On the last page of 2019, in a hand that was thinner than her old hand, but still hers, she had written a column of numbers I did not recognize. March 14th, 2019. Charlottesville. Attorney fee, $1,200. March 14th, 2019. Filing, $260. April 2nd, 2019. Survey, $1,800. April 22nd, 2019. Recording, $185. And at the bottom, underlined, twice, trust funded, April 22nd, 19. W.E.W. Eleanor Wright Holloway. Her maiden initial back in. I sat very still. I had not known about a trust. I turned the page. A folded sheet of paper. Cream-colored. The same kind of paper Harrison Whitmore had laid on the hood of my truck an hour ago. I unfolded it. It was a letter from a law firm in Charlottesville. Henley and Boone. Dated April 24th. 2019, addressed to Mrs. Eleanor Holloway. Dear Mrs. Holloway. Enclosed, please find the recorded original of the Holloway Family Land Trust, executed on April 22nd, 2019, naming Eleanor Wright Holloway as settlor, Eleanor Wright Holloway and Francis Edward Holloway as co-trustees during her lifetime, and Francis Edward Holloway as sole trustee thereafter. The 2-acre parcel at 418 Mill Street, Millbrook, Virginia, including all structures, has been deeded into the trust as of the recording date above. Please retain this document with your personal papers. The signature at the bottom was a young attorney's, a name I did not know. I read it twice, then a third time, in April of 2019-18, months before she died. Ellie had quietly walked into a lawyer's office in Charlottesville by herself on a day I must have been at the shop, and she had put the land and the house and the workshop into a trust. The trust owned it, not me. She had named me the trustee, which meant I controlled it, but I didn't own it outright, which meant, if I was reading this right, no one could put a lien on it without coming through the trust. No one could foreclose on it for a debt of mine, because it was not, in the eyes of the law, mine to pledge. She had known. Somehow, in 2019, with a tumor already growing inside her, my wife had known something was coming, and she had built a wall. I sat at the kitchen table and I cried, for the first time since the morning of her funeral. When I was done, I got up. I washed my face at the sink. I came back. I picked up the ledger again. There was one more thing I had not seen yet, tucked inside the back cover, behind a faded photograph of the shop on opening day in 1986, was a second envelope. White. Plain. My name typed on the front in a cheap dot matrix font. No return address. Postmarked Richmond, Virginia, October 22nd of this year. 3 weeks ago. I did not remember opening this envelope. I had not opened this envelope. Somebody else had put it in here. I tore it open. It was a letter from a company called Mountain Trust Lending, LLC, with an office address in Tyson's Corner. The letter was dated October 18th. It was the third notice. It said, of a delinquent loan in the principal amount of $95,000, secured by the property at 418 Mill Street, Millbrook, Virginia, originated on April 3rd of this year in the name of Francis Edward Holloway. The current arrearage, with penalties and fees, was $28,147. $28,000, the letter went on. If the arrearage was not cured by November 20th, foreclosure proceedings would commence. Mountain Trust Lending would seek possession. November 20th was 6 days away. I had never borrowed $95,000 from anybody. I had never heard of Mountain Trust Lending. I had not signed any loan in April. In April, I had been replacing a kitchen floor for a widow in Stanardsville and burying my brother's old dog. Somebody had taken a loan out in my name. $95,000. Against a property I did not, technically, own. And the arrearage they were demanding to cure was exactly the number my son had asked me to wire to a fake hospital at 11:11 last night. They had not wanted $28,000 to save Madison. They had wanted $28,000 to make the loan look real. So that when the foreclosure went through, the paperwork would show I had been making payments, that I had acknowledged the debt. I sat at the table for a long time. Then I picked up the kitchen phone, and I called Sam Crawford, and I said one sentence. Sam, I need a lawyer. Today. Sam Crawford pulled into my driveway at 2:15 in a green Subaru that did not belong to him. He climbed out of the passenger side. A young woman climbed out of the driver's side. She was small, in a navy coat and a gray scarf, with black hair cut to her chin and a leather satchel that looked older than she was. She walked the way her mother used to walk up my gravel path in 1996 when she was 8 years old, and her father had just been deported back to Vietnam, and her mother had 3 jobs and no English. And Ellie used to bring her over after school, so she would have a warm kitchen and a piece of cake. Rachel Chen, 35. Legal aid of the Blue Ridge. Mr. Holloway. Rachel, you can still call me Frank. She did not smile. She had not come for a reunion. Some debts are not the kind you forget, even when you grow up and pass the bar. Sam told me on the drive, "May I see the letter?" We sat at the kitchen table. I laid the letter from Mountain Trust Lending in front of her. I laid the trust document next to it. I laid Ellie's ledger open. Rachel read for 9 minutes without speaking. The loan letter twice. The trust 3 times. The recording stamp from the Greene County Clerk. April 22nd, 2019. Book 1188. Page 472. Then she opened her satchel and pulled out a tablet. Frank, I need your Wi-Fi. Sticky note under the toaster. Ellie wrote, Buddy 1998, but it's Buddy 1988 with a space. She found it. She typed. Sam and I watched her face. The trust is recorded. Valid. Unbroken. No subsequent recordings against it. No releases. She looked up. That means the property has not been pledged as collateral by anyone since April 2019. The $95,000 has to be fraudulent on its face. They have a piece of paper that says you borrowed. They have not filed it with the county yet. They are sending you notices to make you panic. If you pay, that becomes proof you acknowledge the debt. If you do not pay, They file in court and use your silence as proof of default. Either way, they win, unless somebody like me steps in. Sam exhaled. Rachel, can you stop them? I can file an emergency action in Greene County Circuit Court tomorrow. A declaratory judgment that the loan is void, and an injunction freezing any foreclosure until the signature is examined. And the signature? That is the next question. She pulled out a clear plastic sleeve. 2 photocopies. Before I drove out here, I called Mountain Trust's compliance line. I told them I was your attorney. I asked for a copy of the executed promissory note within the hour, or I would seek sanctions. They sent it at 1:51. She slid the first paper toward me. A promissory note. April 3rd of this year. $95,000. Borrower, Francis Edward Holloway. The signature at the bottom was mine. Or it was supposed to be mine. I have signed my name on more documents than I can count. I know my own signature the way I know the grain in red oak. This was not my signature. It was close. Very close. The capital F was right. The double L was right. But the way the H opened, just slightly too wide. The pressure of the pen, too even. The way a man signs when he is copying instead of writing. Rachel, this is a forgery. I thought so. Now look at the second page. A driver's license. My number. My address. My birth date. A photograph of a man who was not me. Gray hair. Mustache. But the eyes were wrong. The chin was wrong. He looked enough like a man named Frank Holloway to fool a notary who had never met me. They didn't just forge a signature, they built an entire identity. Whoever did this had your social security number, your birth date, your address, and enough personal information to pass a know your customer check. Frank, this took months. Probably assembled last winter. Probably someone you let into your house. I sat very still. Last winter, February. Tyler and Madison had come up for a weekend. Madison had asked, on the Sunday morning, if she could borrow my office to do her taxes, because the Wi-Fi at her hotel was bad. I had said yes. I had gone to make pancakes. I had not come back upstairs for 45 minutes. Rachel. Yes, Frank. It was Madison. Sam set his coffee cup down hard enough to rattle the saucer. Rachel did not look surprised. She had been watching my face the whole time. Frank. If it was Madison, that tells us how. It does not tell us who. A daughter-in-law with 45 minutes in your office can steal a social security number off a tax return. She cannot stand up a shell lender in Tyson's Corner with a $95,000 credit line and a closing notary. Someone with money and structure did the rest. I thought of a charcoal coat, a cream-colored offer, a small flicker behind the eyes when I had said the words, 28,000. Rachel, the man behind her is her father. She nodded slowly. Then we need to find out what Harrison Whitmore owns, and what Mountain Trust lending actually is, because the law is not on his side. The law is on yours. We just have to prove it before Friday at 5. After Rachel left with copies of the trust, the loan letter, and Ellie's ledger tucked into her satchel, the house went quiet in a way I had not heard it in 5 years. Sam had gone home to feed his dog. The afternoon sun was already low against the ridge. I sat at the kitchen table with my hands flat on the oilcloth. Ellie had known. That was the part I could not get past. In the spring of 2019-18, months before the cancer took her, my wife had driven to Charlottesville by herself, signed a trust she never mentioned to me, and walked back into our kitchen and made meatloaf for supper, as if it were any other Tuesday. She had been protecting me from something, or from someone, and she had not told me, because she had known I would have argued with her. I would have said the land was ours, plain and simple, and a piece of paper in a courthouse drawer was not necessary. She had been right. I had been the kind of stubborn that gets a man's house taken. I got up. I walked into the front room. I sat down at her roll-top desk for the first time since 2020. Her handwriting was everywhere. The blotter. The little drawer of paper clips. A list of phone numbers taped to the side of the desk lamp. Names of her sisters. The doctor in Charlottesville. The funeral home. The man who tuned the church piano. I opened the second drawer down. A green canvas-bound notebook. The kind she had bought in packs of 3 at the drugstore. I had not seen this one before. I opened it. The first page was dated February 11th, 2019. 2 months before the trust. If doesn't see what's coming. He never sees it when it's family. Tyler called again. The 3rd time in a month. He says they're behind on the lease in Richmond. Madison was on the line for a minute. She said hello, and her voice was the same voice my sister Anna's second husband had. The one who took the Buick. I do not trust this girl. I do not trust what she wants from us. I sat back in the chair. I turned the page. February 24th, 2019. Madison came up alone this weekend. Said Tyler had to work. She asked about the deed to the house twice. The second time she said it as a joke. I do not think it was a joke. March 2nd, 2019. I drove to Henley and Boone in Charlottesville. The young lawyer says we can do a trust. He says it would cost about $3,000 all in. I have the money in the Christmas club. Would say it's foolish. F. Would say nobody can take what's ours. F. Has not had a sister-in-law steal a Buick. I read for a long time. She had filled 40 pages between February and the day the trust was recorded. Notes on phone calls. The name of a paralegal who had been kind to her. The exact words Madison had used at Thanksgiving in 2018 when she had asked, in passing, what would happen to the Millbrook property if both of us were gone? Ellie had written that line down inside a black box, twice underlined. The last entry was April 23rd, 2019. The day after the recording. It is done. The house belongs to a trust now, and the trust belongs to a piece of paper, and the paper belongs to F. After I am gone. I will not tell him until the diagnosis is real. Maybe not even then. He is a good man. He believes the world is mostly good men. I love him for that. I have to be the part of him that knows it is not. I closed the notebook. I sat for a while. Then I got up, and I made fresh coffee. And I poured a cup. And I set it across from me on the table, in the chair where Ellie used to sit. The way I hadn't done since the first week after the funeral. All right, Ellie. I see it now. I'm sorry I didn't see it then. Buddy lifted his head from the rug. I think he was listening for her, too. The phone rang. It was Rachel. Frank. I'm at my office. I've been on the Virginia Corporation Commission database for the last 40 minutes. Mountain Trust Lending, LLC, was registered in March of this year. 2 months before they issued your loan. 2 months. It is a brand new entity. A single member. LLC. The registered agent is a commercial filing service in Tyson's Corner. The sole member is listed as another LLC, Sterling Capital Holdings. Sterling Capital Holdings is also a single member LLC. Its sole member is a Delaware entity called WD Strategic, registered through a corporate services company in Wilmington. Whitmore Development. I cannot prove that yet from the filings alone. Delaware doesn't require disclosure of the true owner, but the pattern is consistent with a man hiding behind 2 shells to make a loan to himself in somebody else's name. I closed my eyes. Rachel, he built a bank to steal a house. He built a bank to steal a house. And Frank, here is the part I want you to sit down for. Mountain Trust Lending has issued exactly 4 loans this year. All 4 are to homeowners in Greene, Madison, and Albemarle counties. All 4 are properties. along the proposed Route 29 corridor expansion. Rachel, Frank, this is bigger than your house. He is doing this to other people. He has been doing it to other people. Your shop just happens to be the corner lot. I looked at the empty chair across the table, the coffee cup still steaming. Rachel, I need you to find me the names of the other 3. I am already working on it. I will have them by morning. And Rachel, yes, you said the Route 29 corridor. What is being built there? She was quiet for a moment. A development. A large one. Filed under a different LLC in August. The site plan covers about 80 acres at the intersection of 29 and Mill. The application lists the projected build-out at $42 million. I set my cup down. $42 million. The room was very quiet. I did not sleep that night either. I sat in Ellie's chair in the front room until about 2 in the morning, the green notebook on my lap. Buddy curled on my feet. The wind came down off the ridge and rattled the storm window the way it had rattled it every November since 1986. I had meant to caulk that window for 9 years. Ellie had reminded me twice a year. I had not done it. A man learns, late in life, which of the things he did not do are going to cost him. At 7 in the morning, my phone buzzed on the kitchen table. A text from Rachel, coming to you. 8:15. Bringing breakfast. Don't make coffee. Mine is better. She arrived at 8:12 in the green Subaru. Alone this time. She carried a paper bag from the Bluebird Cafe in Charlottesville and a thermos that smelled like something I had not smelled since the war. Real coffee. Strong enough to stand a spoon in. Frank, sit down. I have been working since 4. She laid a stack of paper on the kitchen table. Maybe 30 pages. Corporate filings. Printed. With yellow highlighter on certain lines. I am going to walk you through this once. Slowly. And then we are going to talk about what we do today. Are you with me? I am with you. She tapped the first page. Mountain Trust Lending. LC. Registered agent. A paralegal service in Tyson's Corner. Sole member. Sterling Capital Holdings. She tapped the second page. Sterling Capital Holdings. Sole member. WD Strategic. A Delaware LLC. She tapped the third page. WD Strategic. Registered through a Wilmington filing service. Delaware does not require disclosure of the true beneficial owner. That is why people use Delaware. But Delaware does require, when an LLC files a certificate of formation, that someone sign the document as the authorized person. That signature is public. I pulled it last night. She slid a fourth page across the table. A scanned signature line. Authorized person Harrison E. Whitmore. Title manager. I looked at it for a long time. He signed his own name. He signed his own name. He didn't have to. He could have used a nominee. Most men at his level use a nominee. He used himself. I think he was sloppy. Or I think he was arrogant. Or both. Or both. She poured 2 cups from the thermos. The coffee was as black as a creek bottom in March. Frank, there is more. I called a friend at the Virginia State Corporation Commission. She owed me a favor from a case in 2022. She pulled the deposit history on Mountain Trust Lending's operating account. Bank of Tyson's. The initial capitalization. March 14th. $420,000. Wired in from Sterling Capital Holdings, which got the money the day before from WD Strategic, which got the money the day before that from a personal account at City Private Bank in the name of Harrison Whitmore. There are no other contributors. There are no other members. He is the bank. He is the only person in the bank. He built a bank to steal 4 houses. He built a bank to steal 4 houses, foreclose on them under color of law, consolidate the parcels, and flip them to a development LLC he also controls, which will then sell the assembled tract to the actual mall operator at a markup of about $31 million. The math is in there. Page 19. I did not look at page 19. I trusted her math. I drank the coffee instead. It was good. Ellie would have approved. Rachel, the other 3 families. She slid 3 more sheets across the table. Walter and Doris Green. 68 and 67. 41 acres on Route 20. He got a foreclosure notice in August. He paid the arrearage. Mountain Trust took the money and is still pursuing. He doesn't know yet that they will not stop. James Brennan, 71. Widower. 30 acres adjoining the green parcel. Got his notice in September. He has been borrowing from his children. He told his pastor last week he is thinking about his words, just letting them have it. And the 4th, Lillian Carter, 83 years old, 12 acres at the intersection itself, the smallest lot, the most important lot, because without it, the assembly does not close. She got her notice on November 1st. She called the number on the letter, and the man on the line told her if she did not pay $19,000 by December 2nd, they would put her out before Christmas. I closed my eyes. I thought of Lillian Carter. I had built her a porch swing in 2007. She had paid me in jars of peach preserves. Her husband, Otis, had been a deacon at Mount Olive Baptist. He had died of a stroke in 2014 on the way home from a Wednesday prayer meeting. I opened my eyes. Rachel, we are not just saving my house. No, Frank, we are not. I stood up. I walked to the kitchen window. I looked at the backyard. The old swing set Tyler had used in 1992, the burned skeleton of the workshop beyond it. I turned around. Rachel, you said you can file an emergency action in Greene County tomorrow. What if we do something different? What if we wait? She looked at me. Talk to me, Frank. Harrison gave me until Friday at 5. If we file in court Wednesday, he disappears. He walks away from Mountain Trust, leaves it to collapse. Let some lawyer in Tyson's take the fall, and he comes back at this in 2 years, under a different shell, with a different daughter-in-law. We stop my foreclosure. We do not stop him. The other 3 families still lose. What are you proposing? I am proposing we let him think I am going to take the deal. I am proposing we let him sit down across a table from me on Friday afternoon with the deed in front of him. And I am proposing we record what he says. Rachel did not answer for a long time. Then she nodded once. Frank, that is dangerous. That is also exactly what your wife would have done. I sat back down at the table. Rachel, get me Sam, and bring me a tape recorder. Sam Crawford came at 10 in his old Chevy. He brought a brown paper grocery bag and set it on the kitchen table without ceremony. Inside, wrapped in a checked dish towel, was a Sony cassette recorder that looked older than Rachel. Edward, this was my father-in-law's. Used it to dictate sermons. The motor is good. The microphone is good. The batteries are new. I tested it last night with a Hank Williams tape, and I could hear him breathing. Rachel picked it up. She turned it over in her small hands. She pressed the play button. The reel spun. The little speaker hissed. Frank, this is better than a phone. A phone gets searched. A phone gets subpoenaed. A cassette sits in a man's shirt pocket and nobody thinks twice about it. Will it hold up? In Virginia, only one party to the conversation needs to consent to a recording. That party is you. The tape will hold up. The chain of custody will hold up if Sam and I both witness you put a fresh tape in, and we both witness you take it out, and we lock it in my office safe before Harrison's lawyer can argue it was edited. Sam nodded once. He had been a deputy for 31 years. He knew chain of custody the way he knew the names of his grandchildren. I sat down at the table. All right. We have a tape recorder. We have a meeting on Friday at 5. We have a man who is sloppy and arrogant and signed his own name on a Delaware filing. What we do not have is enough on Madison and Tyler to keep this from looking like one old man got lucky. Rachel reached into her satchel. She pulled out a second SD card. I went back to the trail camera last night. Sam met me at the shop at 10. We pulled 3 months of footage. I have not had time to watch all of it. I watched the last 60 days at 4 times speed. Frank, you should see what I found. She opened her tablet. She slid the card in. She pulled up a clip dated October 29th, 3 weeks ago, at 4:11 in the afternoon. The frame showed the back fence of the workshop. The light was that flat, late October light, the color of old brass. A figure walked into the yard from the alley. A woman. Tall. Dark hair pulled back. A long camel coat I had seen once at Christmas of 2021. Madison. She walked along the back wall of the workshop. She stopped at the gas meter. She bent down. She held something to the pipe for maybe 4 seconds. Then she stood up, looked carefully at the windows of the house, and walked back the way she had come. Rachel paused the frame. Frank. Look at her right hand. I leaned in. A small, dark rectangle, the size of a deck of cards. She had pressed it to the gas line and left it. What is that? At this resolution, I cannot say for sure, but I have seen one before. It is a magnetic GPS tracker, the kind a private investigator clips to the bottom of a car. They are cheap. They run on a SIM card. They report a location every 15 minutes. She put a tracker on my gas line. She put a tracker on your gas line so that her husband, 20 days later, would know exactly where to walk in the dark with a gas can. The shop is on a corner. The back wall is shielded from the streetlight. She marked the spot. Sam exhaled slowly. Edward. She walked it for him, like a deer stand. I sat back. I thought of Madison at Christmas. The way she had pushed peas around her plate. The way she had asked, without quite asking, whether the shop would go to Tyler one day. The way she had touched my arm at Ellie's funeral and said, Frank, you are family now in a different way. And I had not known what to do with the sentence. I had known. I had just refused to know. Rachel, is there more on that card? There is more. There is a lot more. I want to show you one in particular. October 17th. She found the clip. 3:46 p.m. Same back fence. This time, a black sedan pulled up in the alley. Not Madison's car. A driver got out. He opened the rear passenger door. A man stepped out in a charcoal coat. Harrison. He stood in the alley behind my shop for 2 minutes and 40 seconds. He looked at the building. He looked at the corner. He pointed at something on the ground. The driver took out a phone and photographed where Harrison was pointing. Then Harrison got back in the car. The car drove away. 3 minutes and 12 seconds of footage. Harrison Whitmore on my property. On a Tuesday afternoon. 3 weeks before the fire. Surveying the lot, like a man measuring a coffin. Rachel did not say anything. She did not have to. I stood up. I walked to the sink. I ran cold water over my hands for a long time. Sam. Edward. On Friday, when I sit down with him, I want him to think I'm tired. I want him to think I am beaten. I want him to think the deal is the only door left in the room. I want him to walk through that door talking. He will. And after, Sam looked at Rachel. Rachel looked at me. And after, Rachel said, We do not go to Sheriff Boyd first. Boyd is a good man, but this is bigger than Greene County. We go to the FBI Charlottesville Resident Agency. Wire fraud, mail fraud, identity theft across state lines, conspiracy. That is federal. That is also where Lillian Carter and the Greens and Mr. Brennan get their houses back. I dried my hands on a dish towel Ellie had embroidered in 1991. Then on Friday afternoon, before the meeting, I want all 4 of them at the town hall. The Greens, Brennan, Lillian Carter. I want them in the back row, quietly. I want them to hear, in person. The man who tried to take their homes admitted on a cassette tape. They have waited long enough. Rachel nodded slowly. Frank, that is not a courtroom strategy. That is a sermon. Yes, ma'am. It is. They came on Thursday afternoon, one at a time, the way people come when they are not sure they should be coming at all. Walter Green arrived first. At 1 o'clock, in a brown Ford pickup older than Old Blue. His wife Doris stayed in the cab. He stood on my porch in a feed store cap and would not look me in the eye for the first minute. Frank, Sam said you knew something about the letters. Walter, come inside. Bring Doris. There is coffee. James Brennan came at 1:30. He walked. He lived 2 miles out on County Road 6, and he had walked the whole way, in a wool coat and good shoes, because he did not want to spend the gas. Lillian Carter came last, at 1:45, driven by her grandson Marcus, who was 22 and worked at the lumber yard and would not let her out of his sight. I sat them at the kitchen table. Rachel was there. Sam was there. Buddy moved from foot to foot under the chairs and let himself be petted by anyone who wanted to pet him. I did not make a speech. A man my age has learned that speeches are for people who have not earned the right to be quiet. I am going to tell you what is happening. Then, Rachel is going to tell you what we are going to do about it. Then, we are going to ask you for one favor. You can say no. Nobody in this room will think less of you for any answer you give. I told them about the call at 11:11, the fire, the trail camera, Ellie's trust, the forged signature, Mountain Trust lending and Sterling Capital Holdings, and a Delaware filing with a name on it. I told them about the $42 million at the corner of Mill and 29. I told them, last, that they were not alone, that there were 4 of us at this table because somebody had picked us off a map and decided we were too tired to fight back. Lillian Carter cried a little, quietly, into a handkerchief that had belonged to her husband. She did not wipe at her eyes. She just held the cloth there. Walter Green said one word, bastard. Doris reached over and put her hand on his. James Brennan did not say anything for a long time. Then he looked at me across the table, and his eyes were clear and steady. The eyes of a man who has spent a lot of years deciding to give up and waking up the next morning still alive. Frank, what do you need us to do? I need you to come to the Millbrook Town Hall tomorrow afternoon at 4:30. Sit in the back row. Do not speak. Do not stand. Do not react to anything you hear. Just be there. At 5 o'clock, a man is going to walk into that building expecting to sit across from me and buy my house. He is going to say things he should not say. We are going to record them. After he is done talking, I want him to look up, and I want him to see your 4 faces in the back of that room. And I want him to know that he did not steal 4 houses in secret. He stole them in front of witnesses, and the witnesses came. Walter looked at Doris. Doris nodded once. Lillian folded her handkerchief in her lap. Mr. Holloway, my husband used to say a man steals from one of us. He steals from all of us. Otis would not have missed that meeting. I will not either. James Brennan stood up. He held out his hand. I took it. His grip was thin, but it did not shake. 4:30, Frank. Back row. They left the way they had come. One at a time. Quietly. The way people leave church. When the door closed behind Marcus and his grandmother, Rachel pulled the Sony cassette recorder out of her satchel and set it on the table. "Frank, we have until 5 p.m. tomorrow. We need to walk through what you are going to say. 20 times if we have to." Sam poured fresh coffee. We worked until dark. Rachel played Harrison in the rehearsals. She did him very well. She had a cold voice she could pull on like a coat, and she knew how a wealthy man phrases an insult so that it sounds like generosity. She made me practice the silences. She made me practice not interrupting. She made me practice the one question I would have to ask, the question that would not work if I asked it too early. "Harrison, before I sign, I need to understand something. The $28,000 you told Tyler to ask for, was that the arrearage on the loan you made to yourself in my name? The first 6 times I tried it, I asked it with anger. The 7th time, I asked it tired. The 8th time, I asked it almost kindly, the way Ellie used to ask Tyler if he had stolen quarters out of her purse. And Rachel stopped me and said, 'That one. That is the one. Say it exactly like that tomorrow.' By 9 o'clock, the kitchen smelled of coffee and old paper. Sam went home. Rachel stayed another hour, going over a list of every document she would have ready in her car, in case Harrison demanded to see anything in writing. Then she stopped at the door, her hand on the knob. "Frank, one last thing. If he brings a lawyer, this does not work. The lawyer will stop him from saying any of it. I called his office twice today posing as a title clerk. His assistant told me he intends to come alone. He thinks you are not worth a lawyer. That is his mistake. That is his mistake." She left. I sat at the kitchen table for a long time after the Subaru's taillights disappeared up Mill Street. I put a fresh 90-minute Maxell tape in the Sony. I labeled it in pencil. November 19th. Town Hall. Holloway. I clicked the cassette door shut. I checked the batteries. I checked them again. Buddy looked up at me from the rug. "Tomorrow, boy." He thumped his tail twice. I turned off the kitchen light. Friday morning came gray and cold. A thin snow had fallen overnight. The kind that does not stick to the road, but powders the porch rails and the hood of old blue like flour on a kitchen counter. I was up at 5. I shaved with care. I put on the gray wool shirt Ellie had given me for Christmas in 2017, the one I had only worn twice. I put on my good boots. I put the Sony cassette recorder, already loaded with the fresh Maxell tape, into the inside pocket of my Carhartt jacket. Sam had helped me cut a small slit in the lining the night before. The microphone sat just above my heart. At 8, I called Harrison Whitmore's office. A woman answered. I told her my name. I told her I had thought about his offer. I told her I wanted to come in this morning to talk before the 5 o'clock deadline, because at my age I did not like waiting until the last hour for anything. She put me on hold for 1 minute. She came back. "Mr. Whitmore will see you at 10. 290 Pantops Mountain Road, Suite 400. I drove down to Charlottesville alone. Rachel had wanted to come. I told her no. I told her Harrison needed to see me arrive in a 23-year-old Ford with a tired man behind the wheel. He needed to feel the size of the thing he was about to do. Vanity is a kind of door. You knock on it the way it expects to be knocked on, and it opens. Whitmore Development Group occupied the entire 4th floor of a glass and limestone building on Pantops Mountain. The lobby smelled like new carpet and money. A young woman at the front desk took my coat. I let her take it. The cassette recorder stayed in the inside pocket. The microphone wire ran up under my shirt collar and ended at a small button I had taught my thumb to find without looking. Harrison's office was at the end of a long hallway, hung with framed photographs of strip malls. He met me at the door. He shook my hand. His grip was warmer than it had been in my driveway. A man's grip warms up when he thinks he has already won. "Frank, please, sit. May I offer you coffee?" "No, thank you. Harrison." I sat in a leather chair. He sat behind a desk the size of my kitchen table. I pressed the button under my collar with my thumb. I felt, through the wool of the shirt, the small click of the cassette door engaging. The reels began to turn against my chest. Harrison, I have read your offer. I have spoken with my son. I have spoken with with Sam Crawford, who you may not know, but who I have trusted for 40 years. I am here to tell you I'm prepared to sign. He smiled. He let the smile sit there for a moment before he answered. Frank, that is the right decision. That is the decision a wise man makes. There are conditions. Of course. Please. First, the arson charge against Tyler. I want it reduced today, not Monday. Today. I want a phone call placed from this office, in front of me, to whoever your lawyer is in Greene County, with instructions to walk into Sheriff Boyd's substation by noon and arrange for the charge to be reduced to reckless endangerment with no jail time. That is already in motion, Mr. Frank. I told you it would be. Second, I will not sign at your office. I will not sign at a title company in Charlottesville. I am 68 years old, and this is the only home I have ever owned. I will sign in the building where I have voted since 1978. The Millbrook Town Hall. There is a small council chamber on the second floor. I have already arranged it with the clerk. 5 o'clock this afternoon, as you proposed. I will be there with the deed. You will be there with the check. He considered this. He was a man who liked to control the room, but he could feel the size of the win in the air. He could afford one indulgence to a tired old carpenter. The town hall. All right, Frank, 5 o'clock. Third, I want you to tell me why. He tilted his head. Why what? Why me? Why my shop? Why the Greens and Brennan and Lillian Carter? Why all of us? I am going to sign your paper. Harrison. But I am not going to sign it without understanding what I am signing for. I have a right to know. He was quiet for a long beat. Then something behind his face shifted. The careful arrangement loosened a quarter inch. He glanced at the closed office door. He leaned forward slightly. Vanity opened. Frank, may I be candid? Please. There is a project. $42 million. 80 acres. A regional outlet center anchored by names you would recognize. The site plan is approved in concept. The financing is committed. The only obstacle is parcel assembly. 4 small lots. 4 families who would never sell at a reasonable number if they knew the buyer or the size of the deal. So we created a different kind of pressure. The instrument is unusual. The result is the same as 1,000 land deals done quietly in this country every year. I am not the first man to do this. Frank, I will not be the last. The 28,000. What about it? Tyler asked me for 28,000 at 11 at night. You told him that number. Was that the arrearage on the loan you made to yourself in my name? He smiled the way a man smiles when he is too far inside a thing to step back out of it. Frank, you are sharper than I gave you credit for. Yes, that was the arrearage. The loan needed one acknowledgement of debt to become uncontestable. You almost gave it to us. The reels turned against my chest. I stood up. 5 o'clock. Harrison. 5 o'clock. Frank. I drove out of the Pantops parking deck at 20 minutes past 11. The snow had stopped. The sun was a flat white disk behind a low ceiling of cloud. I drove east on Route 250, then north toward Millbrook, the cassette recorder still turning in my chest pocket. I did not switch it off. I wanted every mile of road between Charlottesville and home on that tape, in case Harrison sent somebody after me, and the silence on the recording mattered later. My phone rang at 11:40. Rachel. Frank, where are you? Just past Ruckersville. Coming up 29. Pull over. Rachel. Pull over, Frank. There is a Sheetz on the right in 2 miles. Pull in. Park. Stay in the truck. I am going to send you something, and I want you sitting still when you see it. I pulled into the sheets. I parked at the far end of the lot under a bare sycamore. I left the engine running for the heat. My phone buzzed. An email from Rachel. One attachment. A photograph. I opened it. The photograph showed two people sitting at a corner booth in a restaurant. Soft lighting. A bottle of wine on the table. The man wore a charcoal suit and a silver tie. He was leaning toward the woman across the table, his hand resting over hers on the white cloth. The woman wore a black dress, and her dark hair was pulled back. She was smiling at him, the way a woman smiles at a man she has known for longer than a daughter-in-law should know her father-in-law's attorney. Madison. The man was not Harrison. The man was younger, maybe 42, 43. Square jaw, narrow glasses, the kind of haircut a Washington lawyer pays $400 for. My phone rang again. Rachel. Frank. The man in the photograph is Marcus Reeve. He is the general counsel for Whitmore Development Group. He drafted every Mountain Trust loan document. He signed the registered agent forms for Sterling Capital Holdings. His name is on the WD Strategic Operating Agreement as Harrison's manager of record. He is also, according to public Virginia divorce filings, separated from his wife as of June of this year. The photograph was taken 6 weeks ago at a steakhouse in Tyson's Corner. The grandson of Lillian Carter. Marcus. That boy works at the lumberyard, but he also drives weekends for a delivery service in Northern Virginia. He recognized Madison from a Christmas photograph at his grandmother's house, and he took the picture on his phone without thinking much of it until last night, when I asked him if he had ever seen her up north. I did not answer for a long moment. I looked at the photograph on the screen of my phone. The hand, the wine, the small private smile. Rachel. Yes, Frank. She is not just helping her father. No, she is not. She is sleeping with the lawyer who built the trap. Yes, and the lawyer who built the trap is the only person besides Harrison who has signature authority over every shell company in the chain. Yes, I closed my eyes. I let the air out of my lungs slowly. Rachel. She is going to roll on her father. After Friday, whatever happens at Town Hall, she has been positioning. If Harrison succeeds, she gets a cut and a quiet divorce from Tyler, and a new life with Marcus Reeve, and a salary at Whitmore Development. If Harrison falls, she gives the FBI Marcus Reeve as the architect, says she was a battered daughter coerced by her father, walks away with immunity, and Marcus Reeve takes the federal time. That is what I think, Frank. I think she has been writing 2 endings for herself since at least June. And Tyler. Rachel was quiet. Tyler is the fool in both endings. Frank. In the version where Harrison wins, Tyler is the convenient husband she leaves. In the version where Harrison loses, Tyler is the arsonist's son who took the fall for everybody else. She does not need him in either story. I sat in the cab of Old Blue at the far end of the Sheets parking lot, and for the first time since the phone had rung at 11:11 on Tuesday night, I felt something break inside me that was not about myself. My son had been a liar this week. He had been a coward. He had been a man who burned his own father's workshop for $28,000. But he had also been a boy who came home from school in the 3rd grade and put his head in my lap because some other boy had called him a name. He had been a young man at his mother's funeral who could not stop shaking. He had been used by the woman he had loved, and he had not even known he was being used. He had thought he was buying a future for his marriage. He had been buying his own ending. I opened my eyes. I looked at the photograph one more time. Rachel, we are going to add a chair at Town Hall. For Tyler? For Tyler. I want him in that room when Harrison plays out his hand. I want him to hear the recording from this morning. I want him to see this photograph. I want him to know, in front of everyone, what kind of woman he chose, and what kind of father he has, and what kind of choice is still left to him. Frank. Sheriff Boyd has him at the substation. He is out on bail. I can call. He will come if you ask. Call him. Rachel, tell him his father is asking. Tell him 4:30. Back row, next to Lillian Carter. I started the engine. I pulled out of the sheets lot and headed north toward Millbrook. The reels in my pocket kept turning. I got back to Millbrook at 1:15. Sam was waiting at my kitchen table with a sandwich on a plate. Ham and yellow mustard on white bread, the way his wife had made them for 30 years before she passed. He had cut it in half. He had put a pickle on the side. Edward, eat. You have not eaten since yesterday. Sam, eat. I sat. I ate. The bread was a little stale. I did not say so. While I ate, Sam told me what he had done. He had been to the town hall at noon with Rachel. The council chamber on the second floor seated 40. They had arranged 12 chairs in a half circle facing a small wooden table at the front. 2 chairs at the table. 1 for me, 1 for Harrison. The Sony cassette would sit in my jacket. A second recorder, a small digital one Rachel had borrowed from a colleague, would sit inside an empty Bible on the table in front of me. 2 recordings. Redundancy. The way a careful man builds a porch. Sheriff Boyd had been told nothing yet. Rachel and I had agreed on this. Boyd was a good man and an honest one. And an honest sheriff who knows about a sting in advance has to decide whether to participate in it or stop it. And we did not want to put him in that position. After 5 p.m., when the tape was in our hands, we would call him. 2 agents from the FBI Charlottesville Resident Agency, a man named Holcomb and a woman named Aguilar, were waiting in a gray Ford Taurus parked behind the Methodist church 1 block from the town hall. Rachel had spent 2 hours on the phone with their supervisor that morning. The supervisor had asked her, twice, whether she understood what she was about to attempt. She had said yes. The supervisor had said the agents would be present, but would not intervene unless someone in the building was in physical danger. After the meeting concluded, the agents would take possession of the tapes and the photograph and the corporate filings and the trail camera footage, and they would begin a federal investigation that night. The Greens would arrive at 4:20, James Brennan at 4:25, Lillian Carter and her grandson at 4:30, Tyler at 4:35. Edward, about Tyler. Yes. Boyd called me an hour ago. Tyler agreed to come. He asked one question. He asked if you were sure you wanted him there. I told him you were sure. I nodded. I finished the sandwich. Sam took the plate to the sink without being asked. At 2 o'clock, Rachel arrived with a small canvas bag. Inside the bag was an old leather Bible with the cover loose at the spine. She had hollowed out the center pages with a hobby knife. The digital recorder fit inside with a 1/4 inch to spare. She closed the cover. She handed it to me. From across the table, it looked like a Bible. A man bringing his Bible to a real estate signing in Millbrook, Virginia. Looked like a man holding on to the only comfort he had left. That was the picture I wanted Harrison to see when he walked in. At 3 o'clock, I took a long shower. I put on the gray wool shirt again, fresh under the same Carhartt jacket. I put fresh batteries in the Sony. I put a fresh tape in the digital recorder inside the Bible. I sat at the kitchen table and I closed my eyes for 10 minutes. I did not pray exactly. I do not know how to pray exactly. I just sat with my hands flat on the oilcloth and let Ellie's name move through my mind, the way a hymn moves through a quiet church. At 3:40, Sam drove me to the town hall in his Chevy. Rachel followed in the Subaru with the documents. We parked in the lot behind the building. We went in through the side door. We climbed the stairs to the second floor. The council chamber smelled of old wood and floor polish, and the faint mustiness of a room used 3 times a month. I sat in the chair facing the door. I set the Bible on the table in front of me. I clicked the digital recorder on through the cover with my thumbnail. I felt for the button under my collar and pressed it. 2 reels. Turning. The clock on the wall said 3:55. At 4:20, the door at the back opened, and Walter and Doris Green came in. Walter holding the door for Doris. Doris in a green Sunday coat. They sat in the back row without a word. Walter nodded at me once. Doris did not look up. James Brennan came at 4:23. He sat next to Doris. Lillian Carter came at 4:28 on the arm of her grandson Marcus, who helped her into a chair and then sat one over so she would have room for her cane. At 4:36, the door opened and Tyler walked in. He was wearing the same gray hooded sweatshirt he had worn at the substation. His face was thinner than it had been on Tuesday night. The way a man's face gets thinner when sleep stops being possible. He saw me at the front of the room. He stopped. He did not know where to sit. I did not stand. I did not speak. I just looked at him. He walked to the back row, slowly, the way a child walks down a long hallway to the principal's office. He sat in the chair next to Lillian Carter. Lillian, without turning her head, reached over and put her small hand on top of his on the armrest, and she left it there. Tyler began to cry. He cried quietly. He cried the way a man cries when something has been broken inside him for a long time, and somebody finally put a warm hand on the place it broke. The clock said 4:41, 19 minutes. I looked at the door at the back of the room. I steadied my breath. I felt the reels turning against my chest, and the second pair turning under the leather of Ellie's Bible. And I waited for Harrison Whitmore to walk through that door and tell the truth into both of them. He came at 4:58. The door at the back of the council chamber opened, and Harrison Whitmore walked in. He wore the same charcoal coat he had worn in my driveway. He carried a leather portfolio in his left hand. He did not see the back row at first. The light at the entrance was dim, and his eyes had not adjusted. He walked 4 steps down the center aisle before he registered the 5 people sitting in the chairs along the rear wall. He stopped. He looked at Walter Green. He looked at Doris. He looked at James Brennan. He looked at Lillian Carter. He looked at Tyler, his own son-in-law, sitting next to an 83-year-old widow whose porch swing I had built in 2007. He did not look surprised. He looked, for 1/2 second, like a man calculating. Then he smiled, the same thin smile he had used in my driveway. And he walked the rest of the way down the aisle and sat down across from me at the small wooden table. "Frank, you have brought an audience." "I have brought witnesses, Harrison. There is a difference." He set the portfolio on the table between us. He did not open it. "I will not perform for them, Frank." "I am not asking you to perform. I am asking you to do what you came here to do. You have a check. I have a deed. The town hall closes at 6. Let us begin." He studied me for a moment. He looked at the Bible on the table by my right hand. He looked at my Carhartt jacket. He looked at my face. He was a careful man, and a careful man feels the air in a room the way a deer feels a change in wind. But Harrison Whitmore had spent 40 years in rooms where he was the most important person. And a man who has been the most important person in too many rooms loses the part of himself that can read a room he is not running. He opened the portfolio. He slid a folder across the table. The purchase agreement, $180,000. The check is paper-clipped to the inside front cover. Made out to Francis Edward Holloway. Drawn on City Private Bank. Certified at 9 this morning. I assume you have the deed. I have the deed. I did not move to take the folder. I left my hands flat on the table. "Harrison, before I sign, I want to say something for the room. Then I want to ask you 3 questions. Then I will sign." He glanced at the back row. He weighed the cost of refusing. He decided the cost was higher than the cost of indulging me. He spread his hands. By all means, I did not turn to face the back row. I kept my eyes on him. "This morning, in your office on Pantops, you and I had a conversation. In that conversation, you told me about a $42 million outlet center planned for the intersection of Mill Street and Route 29. You told me there were 4 parcels you needed to assemble. You told me you had created, in your words, a different kind of pressure to acquire them. You confirmed that the $28,000 arrearage on a loan I never took out, in my name, from a company called Mountain Trust Lending, was designed to obtain a payment from me that would have made the fraudulent loan uncontestable. Is that correct?" He held very still. "Frank, I am not going to relitigate a private conversation in a public room. It is not a public room. It is a council chamber rented for a real estate closing. There are 5 people in this room besides us. 3 of them are the other parcels you are assembling. 1 of them is your daughter's husband, whom you instructed to set fire to my workshop on Tuesday night. The 5th is a deacon's widow, whose home you tried to take before Christmas. None of them is a stranger to this story. They have a right to hear it from your mouth. Is what I just described correct?" He was quiet. The room was quiet. The clock on the wall ticked once. "Frank, I came here to buy a house, not to be interrogated. You came here to buy 4 houses. Harrison, you are only sitting at the table with one of them. I am asking you whether what I said is correct. Yes or no." He looked at the back row this time. He looked at Walter Green's face. Walter did not look away. Something in Harrison shifted. The careful arrangement of him slipped a second time, the way it had slipped in his office this morning. He had spent his life negotiating from a position of being the only man at the table who knew the size of the deal. He was not, anymore, that man, but he was still a man who believed, deep in the bone, that he could talk his way through any room. "Frank, I will say this. The structure I created is legal in its component parts. Lending is legal. Foreclosure is legal. Land assembly is legal. The arrearage was, yes, a mechanism. The mechanism would have produced a result that the law would have recognized, given enough time and enough silence. I will not apologize for the architecture of a deal. I will apologize, if you require it, for the involvement of your son. That was poorly managed." "By whom?" "By people working for me. Name them." He paused. "Marcus Reeve drafted the loan documents. My daughter, regrettably, provided certain personal information about you that should have been obtained through a different channel. The arson was Marcus Reeve's idea. I did not authorize it. I did not know about it until Wednesday morning. I let that sit in the air for 10 seconds. I did not look at Tyler, but I heard, behind me in the back row, a small sound, like a man being struck under the ribs by a flat hand. The sound of a son hearing that the woman he had loved had given his father's information to a stranger in a steakhouse, and the stranger had told her husband to burn his father's shop." I leaned forward slightly. "Harrison, one more question, then I will sign. Frank, where, in your structure, is the line between what you did to me and what a court would call wire fraud, mail fraud, conspiracy, and aggravated identity theft?" He looked at me. He did not answer. I reached out, and I picked up Ellie's Bible from the table, and I held it on my lap. "That is what I thought." The door at the back of the council chamber opened. 2 people walked in, a man in a gray overcoat, mid-40s, square shoulders, a federal badge clipped to his belt, a woman behind him, slightly shorter, dark hair pulled back, a navy blazer and a holstered sidearm visible at her hip when her jacket shifted. Special Agent Holcomb. Special Agent Aguilar. They did not rush. They walked down the aisle the way Sheriff Boyd would have walked. The way a man walks who knows the room is already his. Harrison saw them. The careful arrangement of his face came apart all at once. Not anger, not fear. Exactly. Recognition. The recognition of a man who had been the most important person in too many rooms, and who understood, in 1/2 second, that he was not the most important person in this one. Holcomb stopped beside the table. He held out a folded sheet of paper. Mr. Whitmore, I am Special Agent Daniel Holcomb with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Charlottesville Resident Agency. This is Special Agent Maria Aguilar. We have a sealed federal warrant for your arrest on charges of wire fraud, mail fraud, aggravated identity theft, and conspiracy to commit bank fraud. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be appointed for you. Do you understand these rights, as I have read them to you? Harrison did not answer at first. He looked at me across the table. Frank. Yes, Harrison. You recorded me. I recorded you twice. Once in your office this morning. Once here. The tapes are not in this room. Rachel Chen has the originals in a safe in Charlottesville. The FBI will receive certified copies by 7 o'clock tonight. He closed his eyes for a long moment. When he opened them, something had emptied out of him. The 40 years of being the man at the head of the table. The certainty. He stood up slowly. He held out his wrists. Aguilar cuffed him without flourish. Holcomb took the leather portfolio from the table and slid it into an evidence bag. As they walked Harrison toward the door, Holcomb paused beside me. Mr. Holloway. There are 2 other arrests in motion as we speak. Marcus Reeve was taken into custody at a hotel in Reston 20 minutes ago. Madison Whitmore Holloway was detained at Reagan National 40 minutes ago, attempting to board a flight to Grand Cayman with a one-way ticket purchased Wednesday afternoon. Both will be processed in the Eastern District tonight. I nodded once. I did not trust my voice. He continued, Your son is not named in any current federal warrant. The arson is a state matter, and Sheriff Boyd will determine its disposition. Off the record, Mr. Holloway. An arsonist who provides truthful cooperation in a federal conspiracy investigation tends to find his sentence considered with care. Understood, Agent Holcomb. He nodded. He followed Aguilar and Harrison out the door. The council chamber went very quiet. I sat at the small wooden table with Ellie's hollowed-out Bible in my hands, and I didn't move for almost a minute. Then I stood. I walked down the aisle toward the back row. Walter Green stood up when I reached him. He did not say anything. He just took my hand in both of his, the way men in Millbrook have shaken hands at funerals for 200 years. And then he sat back down beside Doris. James Brennan nodded once. Lillian Carter looked up at me from her chair. Her hand was still on top of Tyler's hand on the armrest. She had not moved it the whole time. Mr. Holloway, Otis would have been proud of you. Mrs. Carter, Otis would have been proud of all of us. I knelt down. My knees protested. I knelt anyway, beside Tyler's chair, so that my face was below his. Son. He was still crying, quietly, the way he had cried at Ellie's funeral. Dad. I didn't know. I didn't know about Marcus Reeve. I didn't know about the flight. I didn't know any of it. I know, Tyler. Dad, I burned your shop. I know. I don't know how to come back from that. I put my hand on the back of his neck, the way I used to when he was 9 years old and had broken something he did not know how to apologize for. You come back from it one day at a time. You come back from it by telling Agent Holcomb everything you know, tomorrow morning, with a lawyer beside you. You come back from it by being honest with Sheriff Boyd. You come back from it by sleeping at my house tonight. In your old room. Because you have nowhere else to sleep, and because you are still my son. And that is still your room. He could not answer. He pressed his forehead against the back of my hand. Lillian Carter did not move her hand from his. Outside the windows of the council chamber, the late afternoon light had turned the color of brass. Somewhere in the parking lot below, a car door closed, and another, and the gray Ford Taurus pulled away with Harrison Whitmore in the back seat, his charcoal coat folded neatly across his lap. I stood up slowly. I helped Lillian to her feet. Marcus took her other arm. We walked out of the council chamber together, the 7 of us, down the wide wooden staircase that the WPA had built in 1937 and out into the cold November air of Millbrook. Virginia, a town that had been on a map since 1798, and that, for one afternoon at least, had refused to be erased. Tyler walked beside me. I drove him home in Old Blue. Buddy met us at the door. We did not speak much on the drive home. Old Blue rattled the same way she had rattled for 23 years. The heater took 3 miles to warm. Tyler sat in the passenger seat with his hands in his lap. He looked out the window at the same houses he had grown up looking at. The Methodist church, the feed store, the old Texaco sign that nobody had taken down since 1994. I parked under the maple. Buddy met us at the porch, slow and stiff in the cold, and pressed his head against Tyler's knee the way he used to when Tyler came home from college on a Friday in the fall. Tyler knelt down and put both arms around the dog's neck for a long time. Inside, I made eggs, 6 of them, scrambled, with butter and a little salt. I made toast. I put coffee on. Tyler sat at the kitchen table where he had eaten breakfast every morning of his life until 2004. He did not say anything. He just watched me move around the kitchen the way a boy watches his father do an ordinary thing and tries to remember it. I set the plate in front of him. Eat, son. He ate. Slowly at first. Then the way a man eats who has not eaten in 3 days. When the plate was empty, he set his fork down and he looked at the oilcloth between us. Dad. Yes, Tyler. How long had Mom known about Madison? From the first weekend you brought her here, February of 2019. Maybe before, and she never said. She never said. She did not want to be the reason you stopped speaking to her. She thought if she said it out loud, you would marry the girl twice as hard to prove her wrong. So she did what your mother always did. She built the wall and let you find out about it later. He nodded. He pressed the heels of his hands against his eyes. I should have known. Dad. I should have known the whole time. Tyler. A man does not see what he does not want to see. That is true of every man I have ever known. Your mother was the only person I ever met who could see what she did not want to see and keep her face still about it. The rest of us are ordinary. Ordinary men get fooled by the people they love. That is not the part you have to apologize for. The part you have to apologize for is the gas can. He flinched. I know, Dad. You will apologize for it. To me, to Sheriff Boyd, to the federal agent who will take your statement on Monday. And then you will spend 10 or 15 or 20 years apologizing for it to yourself. Because that is the part that does not go away easy. But it does go down, with time, with work, with telling the truth every day, even when nobody is asking. It goes down. He looked up at me. You would let me sleep here. You are sleeping here tonight. Your old room is the way you left it. Your mother kept the quilt on the bed. I have not moved it. Dad. Tyler. He could not say it. He just shook his head once and looked down again. I reached across the table and put my hand flat on top of his. The way Lillian Carter had put her hand on his at 4:41 that afternoon. Tomorrow morning you are going to call Rachel Chen. She is going to find you a public defender out of Charlottesville who will sit with you Monday when Agent Holcomb takes your statement. You are going to tell that man every single thing you know about Madison and Marcus Reeve and Harrison and Mountain Trust lending. Every conversation, every text message, every weekend in Reston. The arson is a state matter, and Sheriff Boyd is a fair man, and the federal cooperation will help you. It will not erase what you did, but it will count. Do you understand me? Yes, sir. And on Sunday, you are going to come to Mount Olive Baptist with me. Not because I have started going to church again. I have not. But Lillian Carter is going to be in the third pew on the right, and she is going to have saved a seat for you. And you are going to sit in it. He almost smiled. It was the first thing close to a smile I had seen on his face since Tuesday. Yes, sir. He went upstairs at 10. I heard him stop on the landing outside his old bedroom for almost a full minute before the door opened and closed. I heard the bed creak. Then nothing. I sat in the kitchen for another hour with the lights low. Sam called at 11. Edward. Boyd just left my house. Wanted you to know. Harrison Whitmore was processed in Alexandria at 8:40. No bail. Madison and Marcus Reeve, same building. Separate floors. The U.S. Attorney's Office is talking about a superseding indictment by next Friday. Lillian, Walter, and Doris, and Brennan have already been contacted. Mountain Trust's loans against all 4 properties are going to be voided in federal court. Their houses are safe. Sam. Yeah, Edward. Thank you. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said the thing he had not said in 40 years of friendship. Ellie would be proud of you tonight. I did not answer. I could not. He hung up. I sat at the kitchen table, and I looked at the empty chair across from me. And after a while, I got up, and I went to bed in the room I had shared with my wife for 34 years. And Buddy followed me up the stairs the way he had followed her. And for the first night since Tuesday, I slept. In the morning, the snow came back. It dusted the burned skeleton of the workshop, and the porch rails, and the hood of Old Blue. And for one quiet hour, in the gray dawn light, the whole backyard looked clean. I made coffee. I waited for my son to come downstairs. Spring came late that year. The snow did not fully leave the ridge until the first week of April. By then, a lot had happened, and a lot had not. Harrison Whitmore pled guilty on March 11th in the Eastern District of Virginia to wire fraud, mail fraud, aggravated identity theft, and conspiracy to commit bank fraud. He took a plea because the cassette tapes were what the cassette tapes were, and his own lawyer told him no jury in Virginia was going to acquit a billionaire who had built a fake bank to steal a deacon's widow's 12 acres before Christmas. Sentencing was set for July. The U.S. attorney was asking for 13 years. His lawyer was asking for 7. The number was going to land somewhere in between, and Harrison Whitmore, who was 65 years old, was going to be a different man when he walked out of a federal facility, if he walked out at all. Marcus Reeve pled guilty 2 weeks later. He cooperated. He named names. He gave the government 2 more shell companies it had not yet found. Madison did not plead. Madison fought. Madison's new lawyer, paid for with money nobody could quite trace, argued that she had been a coerced daughter of a controlling father and a manipulated wife of a violent husband. The argument did not survive the photograph from the steakhouse in Tyson's Corner, or the one-way ticket to Grand Cayman purchased with her own credit card on a Wednesday afternoon. She was convicted by a jury on June 28th on 5 federal counts. She is awaiting sentencing as I tell you this. Tyler took 18 months in a state facility in Powhatan. He could have gotten more. The federal cooperation counted, and Sheriff Boyd spoke at his sentencing, and so did I. He writes me every Sunday. His letters are not eloquent. They are honest, which is harder. He gets out in March of next year. There is a job waiting for him at a cabinet shop in Stanardsville. The owner is a man I taught dovetail joints to in 1989. The Greens kept their farm. James Brennan kept his 30 acres. Lillian Carter kept her 12 acres at the corner of Mill and 29. And last Easter, she had me over for ham. And the peach preserves were from a jar she had put up in 2019, the year before Otis died. And we ate them on biscuits and did not say much. The $42 million outlet center was never built. The development LLC dissolved in May. The land at the corner is still the land at the corner. Lillian's porch swing is still there. I built it. Rachel Chen made partner at a firm in Charlottesville in February. She still drives the green Subaru. She still drinks her own coffee. She comes for Sunday supper once a month, and she brings her mother. And her mother and I sit on the porch and do not say much. And that is enough. Sam Crawford is the same as he ever was. He buried his old Chevy in March. Finally. And bought a used Tacoma. He misses the Chevy. I tell him every man misses the truck he was supposed to die in. The workshop. I rebuilt the workshop. Sam helped. A handful of men from Mount Olive helped on Saturdays. Tyler is not here to swing a hammer, but the framing went up in May, and the green tin roof went on in June. And the sign Ellie painted for me in 1991 hangs again above the front door of the shop. Holloway and Son Repair. Because I didn't change it. Because there is still a son. And there will still be work when he comes home. The trust Ellie made in 2019 still holds the land. It always will. After me, it goes to Tyler. After Tyler, it goes to whatever child Tyler may yet have, in whatever life he builds, with whatever woman has earned the right to stand in this kitchen with him. The trust does not care about Whitmore development. The trust does not care about outlet centers. The trust cares about a piece of ground that my wife decided, in the quiet of her own kitchen in 2019, was worth protecting from the world. She was right. I am 69 years old now. I do not have many lessons left in me, and I do not trust the ones I have. Mostly. But there is one I will leave you with. The same one I told Tyler at the kitchen table the night he came home. A house is not a building. A house is not a deed. A house is not a number on a bank statement. And it is not a parcel on a county map. And it is certainly not anything a man in a charcoal coat can buy from you for half of what it is worth. A house is what you build with your own truth, with your own hands, and your own quiet patience, and your own willingness to say no at 11 o'clock at night, when the easy thing is to say yes. Whoever tries to take it from you, whoever knocks on your door with a forged signature and a false story and a deadline by Friday at 5, that person is counting on you forgetting what you built. Do not forget. Do not be ashamed of being old, or being slow, or being tired. The world has need of slow and tired men who remember. If you are watching this, and you have lived long enough to have something somebody else wants, hold it the way Ellie held the trust. Quietly, carefully, with the lawyer she trusted, and the friend she trusted, and the love she did not announce because she did not need to. And if you have a son, or a daughter, or a friend who has lost their way, leave the porch light on. Make the bed. Keep the room. They will come home. If this story spoke to you, Tell me in the comments where you are watching from, and the name of a person who once stood up for you when standing up was hard. I read every one. I will be sitting at this kitchen table with Buddy on my feet, and I will be listening. My name is Frank Holloway. Thank you for sitting with me a while.